Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're having a terrific start to your weekend. Happy Saturday. So, you can see I'm bringing a little max headroom to the meeting. Um, if you haven't been with me here on StreamYard, then welcome. You might see a notice where it says, give StreamYard your permission to see your name. That lets me, if you are watching me on Facebook in the group, in the Live with Less Stress group, or on my 3X Less Stress YouTube channel, then you can comment and I can see who you are. You're not just an anonymous user. If you want to be anonymous, you can, but if you choose to share your name with me, that makes it so much easier to interact and engage. If you haven't been with me, this is day 5 of our micro transformations for change that sticks 5-day series that I've been sharing with you. And up until today, they've been short, sweet, and to the point. I've been trying to keep them around 5 minutes. Some of them got a little bit longer, but right about 5 minutes, because change doesn't have to be big. Change doesn't have to be radical in order to stick. And in fact, if you make it small and manageable and doable, it's a lot easier to incorporate that and to actually build on that. So if you start thinking of change as building blocks instead of a radical departure from who you are and what you've been doing, it's a lot easier to hold on to that moving forward. So glad you are joining me today. Today's session, instead of being short, sweet, and to the point, I will still stay on track. Got some notes over here on the side, and I do have a couple of slides because we're going to dive in today to some of the things that might pop up and be obstacles in our pursuit of the change that we are creating. So I will pull those up in a minute. This is a new feature I haven't used on StreamYard. And if you want to throw questions at me, like I said, please throw those in the comments. If you want to join me, I did say that was possible. So let me see here. I think I can copy this link and let me see if I can share it. If you feel inclined to jump in and join me, then you can do that. I'm going to post this as a comment. Good morning, Deb. Good to see you. I hope you're having a terrific start to your day. I'm going to share this in the comments. Can't post comments on some destinations. That might be YouTube, but we'll do what we can do. So if you feel inspired to join me in the studio, you can tell I've got my artificial background on. I'm working on location this morning so that the guys can actually move about the rest of the house. The code of silence on a Saturday. That's not very kind, is it? So I'm sharing this comment in the chat. So if anybody feels inspired to come on over and join me, you can click on that link. And then so what that does, let me explain StreamYard. If this one's new to you, it lets you come on into the studio. So you actually go to a web page and then you can check your audio and video settings and then you can come in. So I'm going to share a little bit of content and then have some time for questions. So if you want to join me for that portion, you can, or whatever moves you. But I'm so glad to have you here with me today. So let's dig in. If you have been following me for a bit, you might know that I can carry on. So I have notes to keep me on track. And I'm going to reassemble my screen here so I don't lose anything, just in case anybody pops in. So the process we've been following this week, micro changes. Micro transformations for change that sticks. I keep changing that name up. The first step along the way was self-awareness, tuning into what it is that you're ready to change. And we'll probably come back to this, but I'll go ahead and open it up right now. So tuning into the change that you want to create. And it's not about new year, new you. You've probably heard me say that through the course of this week. It's not about a radical departure, like I was just saying. What would you like to bring in? And sometimes pain pushes more than pleasure pulls. So if you're just thinking about what you want less of or you want to stop doing, and that's fine. It's a good starting place, but it's a lot easier to move yourself towards something that is positive. So what would you like to be? Perhaps you would like to be a person who is more focused in their work. Perhaps you would like to be a person who practices mindfulness. Now, you might want to say, I want to be a meditator. And if that's the case, kudos to you. But if that's a big step, then I want to be a person who practices mindfulness. That can start out with 1 or 2 minutes a day. And we're going to get into that, making change doable and digestible. But it starts with taking on that personality, that persona. It makes it so much easier rather than shoulding all over yourself. I should get up and exercise. I should put down that second serving of dinner, even though it tastes so good. I keep wanting to put more in my mouth, right? So, moving towards the person that you want to be rather than scolding yourself for not being there already. It's a lot easier to move towards that positive. And I love to talk about happiness habits. Happiness is an inside job. When you're looking outside of yourself for rewards and gratification and joy, it's a lot more fleeting and a lot harder to come by. But when you recognize that celebrating your own wins, little spoiler alert, we're going to come back around to that, and celebrating you, it's a lot easier to stay on track when you build that confidence rather than trying to break yourself down. So, step one of bringing on change is the change that you want to create in the world. Step two is claiming it and then getting clear on it. So, claiming that change that you want to create. Hopefully, it's one starting out. BJ Fogg, who wrote Tiny Habits, says keep it to 3. So if you really feel motivated, that new year trend has still got you on board, then look at up to 3 things if you want to start making shifts. Remember, they're tiny, so it's not too overwhelming. Starting with one tiny shift is A-OK. So claim that and then build it into your schedule. There are a couple of things we can do to make change easier. We can set the stage. Being the theater girl, I'm a big fan of this. So, how do we set up our environment so that it is appealing to do the new thing that we're doing? We have reminders or visual cues. One example that I love is someone who wants to play their guitar more often. If you have to get the guitar out of the closet or open it up and get it out of the case every time, it's not as easy and appealing as if you have it on a stand next to a chair that you like to sit in when you play the guitar. It's a little easier to come back to it. You see it. We're very visual creatures. You see it, you get that reminder, and it's easy to go ahead and pick up. So perhaps maybe you want to watch less TV. One suggestion that was shared is take the batteries out of your remote control. So you have to physically get the batteries, put them in. It doesn't take very long, less than a minute, but you have to think about it. It's not as automatic as picking up that remote, hitting that button, seeing what news comes on, and then going down that spiral. Right? So, how can you set your environment up for success? And if there are changes that you want to make, things you want to remove from your schedule, you can make them a little more difficult. That hasn't been the focus of this week, taking things off of your schedule. I like to add in more of the good so it starts to edge out the bad. But if you want to start swapping things out, then that's a good point to follow. You can make it a little more difficult, a little less easy to just dive in and engage. So that's one thing you can do, setting up your environment for success. You can also make it easier to do the thing by getting everything staged. So another really popular example is if in the morning you want to start by stretching or working out. Now remember, we're starting tiny changes. So it's not an hour of yoga that you have to fit into your already full schedule. It's 2 minutes. So how are you going to start with 2 minutes? Maybe your yoga mat is already near the place on the floor where you can roll it out. Maybe the first clothes that are easy for you to put on in the morning are some clothes that you can stretch in. And then spend 2 minutes doing some yoga stretches. Start building that habit. Do habits take 66 days to implement? It depends, right? It depends on you, the thing, how much you love it. We're going to come back to those celebrations and how you can incorporate it into your lifestyle. It might take 3 weeks of consistent action to make it a habit, to really incorporate being that person. It varies. We are unique creatures, so we get to see how that shapes up for us. But ultimately, because we have so much to do, so much to think about in the course of the day, the more things we can build into a routine, the more things we can make habit, the easier it is to keep ourselves on track. So that's why working these habit changes in now is so helpful. And I'll take a brief side trip to explain to you why I'm so passionate about making changes that stick. And upgrading our habits now, even if we're not struggling, even if we're not feeling the repercussions of not getting active and moving our bodies every day. If you're mostly healthy and not too stiff, even though we spend most of our time sitting in a box at this desk, like I am right now, over time, those things add up. And so while we feel fine now, maybe we wish we had a little more energy, a little more focus after lunch, we don't really feel the impact now. By the time we start feeling the impact, we're so far down this lane. That's when, in order to make a change, in order to restore our health, we have to make that radical shift. And I don't know about you, I kind of think I'm more friendly with change than most people. I've moved around a lot in my life, I've done a lot of different kinds of work. Change tends to lead us into overwhelm. Change tends to take our already maybe too high stress level and spike it because the unknown feels unsafe. We're wired, biologically, we are wired to respond to stress, and our body is on alert. So rather than get to that point at which we don't feel great, we don't, beyond having little energy, we're really feeling sick, that disease has really had a chance to set in, then we have to make a change, which makes us even more stressed and even more overwhelmed. I used to work with senior clients in their 80s and 90s. I was a senior move manager and I helped them move from their home to a smaller place, often retirement living. And in San Diego, that can be pretty luxurious. So it was not a bad gig. And it was a lot like setting the stage, right? Like my theater days, I could set up their new apartment, make it feel like home. I knew that they would get engaged in that social life, those activities going on, be so much more connected than they had been. Once they made that transition, they would embrace it. But all along that path, they hated it because they felt like their independence had been taken away from them. They felt like their health had failed them. They felt like their kids or their doctor were ganging up on them and saying, you can't stay home. You've got to go somewhere else. We don't want to end up in that place. We don't want to lose our independence as the result of the choices that we are taking every day. So, what if we make better choices starting right now? What if, like I believe James Clear says, every action we take is a vote for the person that we want to be? Then we're not adding up the tally of all the things that we didn't do right. We're not keeping score of what we did wrong. We are adding to that ultimate goal, that book, the future that we're writing for ourselves, and embellishing that story. We're filling that in. That's why I'm passionate about inspiring people to change the way we show up to stress, to feel more empowered in creating a life that we love, and to recognize that change doesn't have to be hard unless we put ourselves in a situation where we've got to take on a lot of change really fast. So let's do it the easy way. Let's make it easier to embrace this change. And so maybe you have an experience, maybe you know someone in your life who ran into a situation like that, who you witnessed having to make hard changes because of something that maybe it was their own health, maybe it was an external situation. Things happen. But when we are proactive and look for opportunities, that's a powerful way to be training our brain to be looking towards the positive, to be solution oriented. What we look for, we find. So if we keep looking in the right direction, it really improves our odds of success. And like I already said, happiness is an inside job. When we start looking inside of ourselves for that satisfaction and pride in what we do to take care of ourselves, it builds us into that powerful momentum. So forgive that side note there. Let me get back on track over here. So we are looking for ways to make it easier to incorporate change and to build those habits so that more and more beneficial practices become routine. So we have been adding to our list. We have been setting up our environment for success. And we start really tuning into then the unique way that you operate. I shared my own experience, how I make change doable for me. It's not the same way for everyone. Some people love a checklist. I did it today. I did it today. I can see this week. I did it every day. Some people see that checklist and say, ugh, I missed 2 days. Whatever. I guess maybe later. And take that as discouragement. If that's you, then don't set yourself up to struggle with a checklist. Find another way to celebrate your wins. Now, that's the important thing. If tracking, if accountability, if calling into someone every day and saying, I did the thing or I didn't do the thing, if that doesn't turn you on, then don't do it. But find a way to celebrate when you do, because that's how we, again, what we focus on grows. We teach our brain that those successes matter and that we are capable of success. We are capable of committing to the thing that we want to do. When we believe that we are capable of that change, then we believe we are capable of even more. Change doesn't have to be overwhelming and threatening. Okay, we can move ourselves in the right direction. I'm gonna have to take a drink for a second here. Pardon me. So if there's any questions at all, feel free to throw those in the comments and I will come back. If you're not watching me live, let me know you're catching the replay and I will catch those questions too. Thank you. We have a checklist fan in the house. I do too, to an extent. Here's what I'm doing with I have a couple of things I'm integrating now. I'm integrating moving daily. I'm integrating starting my day without media. I actually am working my way through The Artist's Way. If you're familiar with that book, it's by Julia Cameron. So my focus is journaling every morning instead of picking up my phone and falling into the news feed. I'm moving every day, I'm writing, and I'm working with more focus. I'm not letting distraction get the best of me. So the way that I'm tracking that is I have a little calendar and I have colored pens, different color for the different themes or topics, and that's what I'm filling in. Maybe a strange screen going on. I hope that's not a weird setup. Let's go back to that. Apologies if you've been looking at a little tiny version of my face. I've been dealing with it for a few minutes now. So that's how I'm kind of sneaking up on it. Like I said, I'm not check in with somebody every day, admit if I didn't do the thing. So I like to be a little bit more passive and look back over the sum total and say, hey, I did it half of the days this month or something to that effect. So that's what I'm working towards. And knowing your style is important. Tuning into what works for you is something that we don't give ourselves lots of opportunity and time to do. So it's something that if you are changing the way that you use your time, changing your priorities this year, I hope that you will consider that, looking for ways to tune into what works for you, to be aware of when you're stressed, how that feels in your body. When an emotion comes up, where does that show up and how does that feel? It's easy to let all of the other influence, all that noise out there in the world take over the airwaves, if you will. So it takes some practice to tune into what works for us. So if this is something that's new to you, I'd love to hear about that in the comments. Let me know. I can certainly keep coming back with reminders, with support, with ways that we can improve our ability to tune in. Mindfulness is one. Now, if you are overwhelmed by meditation, if you think, oh, I'm bad at meditation, first of all, let's reframe that. Mindfulness is very powerful. All it is recognizing that we are not controlled by our thoughts, not rewinding over what's happened in the past and fretting about that, and not worrying about what's coming down the line in the future that we haven't even found yet. Being mindful is just being present in the moment. And that can start, as with all of our great new habits, with 1 or 2 minutes a day, just tuning into your breath, being present with your breath, using that diaphragmatic breathing, drawing your breath down into your belly to use your full lung capacity, and just a minute or two. So don't call it meditation if that's a turnoff for you, but mindfulness is a powerful way to be present to what emotions are whizzing by your brain. It's not bad to have thoughts while you're meditating. It's just about being aware of them and being aware of your physical body, your sensations. Where is there pain? Is it more or less than yesterday? Is there stiffness? What can I do to resolve that? Start tuning into you and it's easier to stay aligned with the changes that you're trying to create. So we looked at celebrating your progress, staying the course. We're getting into our new content here. And so I've got a couple of things that I want to share today, but staying the course is the trick. We start to make the change, but that's not always easy. So how do we set ourselves up for success and continue on? Now, one of the things that came up as I was putting together resources and tools for this week is being in a community where you see people living the way that you desire to be. We don't always have that in our inner circle. And a lot of people call it high vibe tribe. I don't want to dance around in that space of appropriation, but I like to talk about how we can raise the vibration of our inner circle. How can we surround ourselves with more positive people if the people we've been surrounded with, and sometimes this is our oldest friends and our closest family, aren't as positive or aren't the type of influence that we want to emulate, right? So, how do we do that? Seeking out those circles, seeking out those people who are living up to their fullest potential is a powerful way to do that. You don't have to delete people from your circle, but you can start raising that vibration, surrounding yourself with more positivity by seeking those influences. I'm a little bit partial. I think that here in our Facebook group, Live with Less Stress, if that's where you are watching, this is something that we do. Hi, Lana lady. Good to see you this morning. I know you have a busy day, so I'm glad to see you joining me for a quick minute. How can we surround ourselves with people who inspire us to do more? That's really the question. And so here in the community, in Live with Less Stress, that's a passion of mine, to bring people together, to share inspiring insights, to share news that makes us think, might shift our perspective, like I said, of what's possible or what we can call in. So where else can you do that? If being active more often is one of your priorities, then how in your area can you engage in people who are more active? Now, I have some Canadians on the line with me today, so it's a little cold where you are. Here in San Diego area, I kind of think we're like the triathlete capital of the world. So there are a lot of running clubs and exercise teams. Perhaps, though, if it's time to be indoors and look for those alternatives, I am a big fan of doing yoga online with Yoga by Adriene or Yoga with Adriene. And absolutely nothing transfers hands. I'm by no means an affiliate of her program at all. I just love how much she creates for free and shares on YouTube. She is running right now a 30 days to move or something with the new year. So you can find community even in that online space, if it's something about being present, being mindful, and moving your body. So be creative about where you can start surrounding yourself with the people who are the kind of person you are growing into being. And while I'm here, I'll also address that. Is it fake it till you make it? Definitely not. We're not being something that we're not, because again, that's holding ourselves up to a standard that can be disappointing, overwhelming, frustrating to work with. So it's about recognizing that we can live into our potential and we're not letting ourselves down if it's not always a good day. We're also not being something we're not. So I'm not about faking it till you make it, but I do believe we can live into our potential and we can move forward in that regard. So some more food for thought there. By all means, share in the comments or let me know what you think about that. And in the description today, I said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. That quote is attributed to Lao Tzu. I don't always know if quotes can be trusted, but it's true. Yes. Isn't that a great inspirational quote, right? I've also heard it said, we can overestimate what goals we can accomplish in the short term, but we underestimate what goals we can accomplish in the long term. So as we're thinking about the person that we want to be, don't limit yourself. Go ahead and dream big. Go ahead and let yourself feel what it would be like if you want to leapfrog from being a person who moves every day to being a marathoner. I have a friend in Seattle who I have been watching, and she has been inspirational, showing up on Facebook every day with a quick photo or comment on her daily walk or run. She's been following a training regimen. She just completed her first marathon. And she, when I knew her when I lived in Seattle, would never have said she was a marathoner, but she is now, because she didn't discredit her potential with her previous performance, right? She held that space for what's possible. She put herself on track and she followed through with it. And I think even surprised herself. Coming down to it, it's a struggle. It's a tough thing to get yourself on board to do. And she overcame some obstacles that were coming up, right? Sometimes we think, ugh, this is evidence. I don't need to do this. I'm not this person. But if you're clear in your objective and why you're doing it for you can keep on showing up for yourself. And if for some reason she had to recover and not done this marathon, she could have scheduled another one in a couple of months. She would still be a marathoner, right? Just because sometimes we don't make our goal on the first, iteration doesn't mean that it's not for us. So we can keep living into the person that we want to be. One of the things that I want to say, okay, first of all, before I get into this, I'm so excited to share this image that I put together. But first, I want to talk about personal well-being, personal priority. And this is one of the things that we addressed when I ran my larger program in the fall, Thriving Life Formula. We really dig into the things that come up and keep us from making the change that we know we need to. One of the things I see most often is worthiness, recognizing that we are worthy of putting ourselves first, that we don't, see our merit reflected in the things that we do for everyone else. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself. Sounds counterintuitive. Some people don't have that problem, but they're not on this channel. So I feel like I can say this pretty openly. We need to put ourselves first so that we can do what we want to do for the people that we love, so that we can be nourished and restored and balanced and show up the way that we want in the work that we do, in the mission that we bring to the world, right? If we fill our own cup first, we have so much more to give. And that is how we can really be of benefit to our community and to the world. We don't need to wait for accolades, for notice coming back from the things that we do from other people, if we recognize that we are worthy first. So it's a little difficult. That's why in that program, we really take a deep dive, and we do work with the flower essences, which can really help to core some of those emotional stumbling blocks that can come up. That's a conversation for another day. That program will be coming along again later on this year. But boundaries are a strong reflection of where our personal priority lies. Do we have that confidence? Do we believe that we are worth coming first so that we have boundaries that are clear, that we recognize, and that we maintain so that other people honor them too? And sometimes it's a little bit of a trick to put those boundaries in place. That is something that we can certainly spend some more time looking at and unfolding as this year goes on too, because it's something to keep coming back to. Brene Brown says, and I found this really fascinating, that resentment is a form of envy. And I believe that's very much tied into the boundaries that we keep for ourselves, and perhaps the boundaries we see other people keeping. Maybe we get a little jealous because some people have no problem saying no. Some people have no problem, holding things at bay or putting things in the order of importance for them. When we haven't recognized our boundaries, when we haven't maintained them, when other people have crossed our boundaries and we start to feel resentment, that's a really important opportunity to take a look and say, ooh, what is coming up? Where do I feel like I've been disrespected? Where has my space been broached without my permission? Or perhaps they thought you had your permission. And so it's a look at where we can maintain those boundaries. That is ongoing work. That is not easy work to do. So that's, like I said, something that perhaps if there's some call for that and support, we can take a look at that moving forward through this year, because I think it really is an ongoing effort and part of the process. So let me see. This is why I had this open earlier. I'm going to add this to the stream. Look at that. I'm just playing with tech. Thanks for tolerating me playing with my tech here. Let me go to the next slide, because I find this fascinating. I really love the work that comes out of Shirzad Chamine. I believe I have his name right. Positive intelligence work. There's a book, there's a coaching program. I worked through his program. I am not a positive intelligence coach, although I know some people who are, if you are interested in really diving in. But fundamentally, I like to share this. Who is holding you back? Who is this voice that might be coming up as you're making change? Because sometimes those saboteurs, as he calls them, I've heard other people call them the shitty committee. I like to call them the trash talkers. And we all have different ones. And maybe there's an aspect of all of these within our lives. Maybe they all have different days of glory, but there's some core voices here that might be most familiar. And if any of these resonate with you, please, if you feel bold or brave, let us know in the comments, or maybe if there's one that you never hear from. I find that really interesting too. Let me know there in the comments too. One of the things, I see a lot of these in myself. I'll just admit that right up front. But fundamentally, the primary saboteur, as Shirzad describes it, and I believe this is true, is the judge. Maybe you know that as the inner gremlin or that inner critic that tends to berate you when you try to make change, that tends to say, who are you to think you can do this thing? Where's the proof? And sometimes that judge sounds like someone from our history. Maybe it's parents, teachers, people who thought they were protecting us by helping us not set our sights too high, right? Or in really ingraining that fear of failure, that fear of not showing up and being worthy. That judge can be quite a conversation. And it is best to be conversational with these rather than try to hit the mute button, because when they feel unheard, they tend to pump up the volume pretty quickly. So the judge is, as Shirzad says, the fundamental or the most prevalent, the dominant saboteur. And beyond that, you may see aspects of some of these. I gave them names, but the saboteur, as Shirzad says, is here in the image too. So Auntie Nancy is avoiding, doesn't want to do the hard things, would rather, I'm looking out the window right now, and chase some sunshine, get out and play. So maybe Auntie Nancy resonates. Maybe you're a bit of a controller and harsh Henry has you micromanaging or worried about what everything is going on. I tend to think people who have issues with change, this is one that comes up for them. So harsh Henry can be a tough voice, especially if it starts to distance you from other people, because we all, connection is really important and something we've been looking for. Oh, that's very self-aware. Thank you. You think you have 7 of those influences, and different days, different times, different volumes, right? Different situations. I'm a big fan of curiosity. Once I was turned on to this perspective and these different nuances, it really made it much more present for me as I'm moving through and sometimes get in my own way, right? Sometimes we do that. We are humans. So go get them, Gloria. I don't know if there's any hyperachievers in the house. I know I've been in those stages of my life, always eyes on the prize, shooting for that goal, maybe stepping on other people to get there, maybe letting our own well-being suffer in the pursuit of one of those goals. So something to think about. Even Steven, keeping score, hyper rational, bringing it down to the logic, really, or maybe getting in your head and ignoring those instincts from the heart or the gut, right? Hyper rationality can start to hold us back and certainly might contribute to some of that disconnection. Feeling hyper vigilant, alert Alice. Boy, these days there's lots of things telling us we're not paying enough attention, but what's within our control and outside of our control? Are we hyper-vigilant about things that are outside of our control? And how is that stress impacting us? So we get to choose where we put our attention. And when we focus on the things that we can change, we start to build confidence in our authority, right? Our inner authority, our ability to create a life that we love. So watch out for Alert Alice. She's a niggler in the corner. Pleasant Penny. I have to say, I was raised to be a good Midwestern girl. I've got some Pleasant Penny roots. I don't like to stir the pot. I don't like to cause a fuss. It's easy for me to make accommodations for people, right? No, that's fine. I can put that in my schedule. I wasn't really counting on that thing. Boy, talk about not having boundaries or other people not even knowing where they are. So That pleaser inclination can be a sneaky one, but one to be aware of. Restlessness. Boy, with the cabin fever that we've been going on, with the limitations that we've had, even over the last few years, itchy ivy, wanting to get out. I can't sit at this computer anymore. I've got to do something else. How can we counter that? How can you know that about yourself and recognize, okay, I'm going to need to get up and move. Maybe it's time for a dance break before I come back with focus. So knowing ourselves is most of the battle, my friends. That stickler voice, critical Keith that sees what everyone else is doing is wrong, often very much like judging ourselves too. Remember, that first saboteur is the judge, but that stickler can also really drive or foster some of that separation between the people that we really wish we could be closer to. And a lot of times, again, that comes from having that lesser feeling of self-worth or confidence. So how can we build that? That's something we can take a look at moving forward through the course of this year too, because I think that's a big, big factor. We all deserve to feel more worthy and more confident. We are all much more capable than we give ourselves credit for. And finally, the last saboteur, that victim feeling, shrinking violet, I called her. Feeling like we're always subject to everything that's going on in the world. And again, where we put our attention, it grows, right? We find evidence to validate what we believe to be true. So maybe there's a lot of evidence, but maybe it's time to start looking again at the things that we can have impact and change. So if you haven't met the saboteurs yet, big thanks to Shirzad and his work. I find it really insightful. And sometimes naming the thing is very empowering moving forward, right? So, let me stop that share for a minute. Oh, okay, good. I think it only is there if I have a slanted shirt. So you don't know what I'm seeing, but here in Mission Control, there's so many options, and I hope that the layout has been fairly easy to tolerate here. So I would love to hear, as we've made it through day 5, what have you discovered? What's come up for you? Maybe let us know if there's a change you're making, or let us know. I mean, let's just take the sum of all the efforts. Sorry about waving my hands around. I shouldn't do that in front of my artificial background. What's the change you're making? How have you set the stage for success? Have you done anything in your house or in your environment this week to make it easier? Any visual cues? Have you enlisted anybody to help you out? Oh, I hear about big, great, wonderful changes. That's marvelous. We didn't spend enough time talking about celebrations. How did I forget that? I hope that you are celebrating. If you have decided on a way to celebrate your progress, or if you have ideas, we'd love to hear those too, because celebrating the wins, I'm glad you're laughing, but I'm kind of serious. Celebrating our wins is so important because we don't give ourselves credit for the things that we do. And I'll take a short side trip here too. I mentioned before, there are positivity practices that we can do to help foster our kind of positivity set point. One of those is writing down 3 things that went well through the course of the day. Gratitude, right? We hear about that. It's because it actually helps to wire our brain to look for those things. If you need a little more evidence that you are worthy, that you do great things, maybe what you do is write something you did great that day, big or small. I held the door for someone. I got the trash out early. I did do my 2 minutes of mindful breathing. Keep track of those, write those things down, because then again, we're training our brain to recognize that we do good things. Because biologically, we tend to cue in on the negative. It's protection, it's self-preservation. But we have the ability to train our brain to what is appealing, to what is worth celebrating, to the fact that we can make change and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So I hope you're finding a way to celebrate you and that it is aligned with your goals. My focus on focus this week has been, if I work with focus, then I am getting off the computer a little earlier. So it's a win-win, right? When I power through and I don't get up and move around, I don't do something to help myself resume focus, then I just sit there for hours longer. Honestly, let me know if you can relate to that. Oh, I'm a little foggy. I'm a little tired. I'm just going to power through. I don't have time to take 5 minutes. when that 5 minutes can get your focus back and might even make you twice as productive, right? So what are ways that are in line for you to celebrate your wins? I hope that you'll share those with us. I'm so glad that these ideas are helpful and relevant. Really happy to hear that. Thank you. And again, too, I want to reiterate having those groups where you see people doing the thing, where you are surrounding yourself with people who are living to the style, the commitment, the focus that you have. It makes it easier, right? Because change can be difficult, and working outside of our comfort zone takes a little extra effort and energy. We have to live into that, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Sometimes we have to really sit with why we need to make that change. What are the issues that come from if we stick with the status quo? And then we can use that to remember, okay, so this feels difficult. This feels like a little extra this week. Here's the benefit. Here's the payoff that I'm moving towards. So I hope that is helpful too. I want to share my screen once more time. Perfect. Yep. Save your spot for the replay. And I want to add this back to the screen. And so I want to share with you what is coming up down the line with me here in the Live with Less Stress group, but really in working with me. So through 3X Less Stress, that is my business. I'm transitioning this year to Thriving Life because I think that more fully illustrates all that we do and are. I wanted to share with you if this making change and specifically how you show up to stress is something you want to dive more deeply into. I will be offering the Reset Stress for Success program coming up next month, starting at the beginning of February and running for 4 weeks. We can take a look at how to feel more empowered in how we show up to stress, turn down the volume on what we don't need, and really start celebrating all that we are, all the ability, capability, and strength that we have. Absolutely. I hope you are taking screenshots by all means. And if you need a slide and you don't get a good resolution, let me know. Next up is the Clarity to Create workshop. This is something I ran a couple of times last year and got terrific feedback. The power of play. You know, when we get all caught up in the doing, we get caught up in the productivity, we can lose sight of the fact that play and creativity help us to actually get more done with more success, helps to boost our results because we have that, you know, creative problem solving skills are refreshed. So the Clarity to Create workshop is coming up in March. And then in April, in time for some spring cleaning, I will be hosting a spring clean home detox. We'll do a workshop, and then that will come with one-on-one sessions so I can work with you specifically to let you know, to take a look at where you are and what's going on with you there. And then ongoing, I offer coaching support. As I mentioned earlier, I work with flower essences. If you're familiar with them, I love to help people feel emotionally balanced with flower essences, which are actually very different from essential oils, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. And I can share some information about those as well. Or just stress buster sessions, creating a strategy to move forward. These are some different ways in which I love connecting with and being of service to people. And I was late getting online because I was trying to create a link, but let me just share. So these all individually are, I have some special pricing that I'll be rolling out this spring. This pricing isn't even on the website. Some of this is a special deal that I'll be making available. So you heard it here first. And the package, if you want to commit to a spring of transformation and get the best date on all of the goodies, then that is something that I have available as well. So that is something that I'm happy to share with you. And let me go ahead and come back to me. Those, if you have questions or want more information there, I'm happy to share that. I'm going to share the link in the chat super quick. So if anybody wants to take a quick look at that, you can. And actually, let me go back to the previous slide that has my contact information there. Susi at 3X Less Stress. If you can't message me right here through Facebook or reach out through YouTube, you can always email me or set up a strategy call. And those strategy calls you can find on 3xlessstress.com. In the top menu bar, click on book a call. It gets you on my calendar for 30 minutes so we can just absolutely free, not all about a sales pitch, but really just get a quick snapshot of where you are, where you can start turning down the volume on some stress and some strategies on how you can start moving forward. So let me pull this back out now. Because I really think it's important to recognize that small changes add up to big results. Small changes are where it's at to help get things going. It's the kind of shift, it's the kind of transformation that sticks rather than thinking we need to do something big and radical. Okay, so now I am sharing. Ooh, flower essences are new for you, Deb. That's exciting. Some of the ladies who came through my Thriving Life Formula program in the fall, it was new for them too. And seeing not only how that worked out for them, but even how they supported the kids was really powerful. I had a mama in the program. She's got 3 busy boys. One of them has been feeling some anxiety. I mean, in these times and the amount of change that kids have to go through, it's a lot. And so we actually, because with that program, you get a full spectrum kit, I call it. There are 38 Bach flower essences, and between 9 bottles, you get them all. I was able to say, oh, give him a little bit of number 3 and number 7. I'm making that up. I have to check my roster again. But she saw a really powerful and quick shift, and they're super safe for everybody. I use them on pets. I do some pet sessions too. I'm a farm girl from way back, so I love to support the animals. So if you feel inspired to join me, you're welcome to post a question in the comments, or you can click on that StreamYard link. That will bring you to a web page where you can join me. I can bring you on in the studio if you feel like asking your question, because technology is very cool. And so I welcome you to do that too. Let me go back through the comments and make sure I caught all of those. I think I was keeping up to a bit. Yes, with the screenshots. And I can go back towards the end and bring up Shirzad's saboteurs again, because I just love that. And I've seen more and more coaches talking about these saboteurs, right? Rick, I'm going to forget Rick's name. Taming Your Gremlin is a terrific little book about how we can approach that voice that tells us, we're not up for making change. Change is a hard thing to do. Maybe I wasn't able to. Oh, yeah, Shirzad is Shirzad. And I think Shamin is Chamin, maybe with an E on the end. And yes, and he has an app and some ways of getting present. Awareness is a major aspect of it, and then some kind of on-the-go techniques to tune in, to really just come back to your awareness and start to pull yourself out of that, off that mental roller coaster. Yes, I think you're pretty close. I'm noticing, I think comments are going to YouTube, but I'm not sure that they're showing up on Facebook. So let me show that, just in case it's not going over to Facebook, but we'll see. So I think that's pretty close. And we have someone watching and putting up random comments over on YouTube. I'm happy to have people watching. So yeah, and we can come back to that too. If that's a check-in that's helpful, I think that check-ins are really beneficial moving forward. And here, especially in the Facebook group and Live with Less Stress, I would love to know what kind of comment serves you, what kind of content serves you, what is inspirational, what gives you good things to think about, what are questions that are coming up, where do you need a little bit of cheerleading, a little bit of motivating. There in the group, it's really about the conversation. Over on 3X Less Stress, I share more about the work that I do and the things that are coming up down the line. So I've got a couple of different channels, and certainly over on YouTube, on the 3X Less Stress channel, I have episodes from the Happified podcast. So you can catch those videos over there. Content is coming online all the time. Some short coaching pearls that I created for Positive Prime, which is a really incredible platform that I've been partnering with over this last year. And I just created a session with them. Oh, I'm going to add this right now. 3x less stress.com/prime to thrive. And I'll share this on the screen. That is a page on my 3x Less Stress site where you can take a look at Positive Prime. It's a daily, kind of like a quick affirmation slide deck. Actually, you can make it go 3 minutes, super quick. It's like drinking from a fire hose, or you can actually stretch it out to be as long as an hour and really immerse yourself in images that are cultivated to help us feel happier, to help us see positive social groups, colors and shapes that inspire joy, affirmation statements that resonate with you or ask you questions because our brains are wired to answer questions. So, how are you so blessed? How do you always know the right answer? You know, how do you stay in touch with your intuition? These kinds of affirmation statements that are much more empowering than saying things that don't quite resonate. So Positive Prime is a wonderful tool, and group of people that I've been collaborating with this year, and that actually lets you find the session that I created with them. You can watch that. So I'm always looking for more tools, more things to share with you, because we are busy, busy creatures. We are doing the best that we can with what we've got. And sometimes it's overwhelming to look at all that's on our plate. So I'm here to help simplify, to streamline. And when you're ready for some strategy, when you're ready to up level your game, when you're ready to chart an empowered course forward, then I hope that if coaching feels like a fit, certainly if any of the programs or online workshops that are coming up over the couple of months, and I'll be sharing more about those here. Stay tuned for breaking news. I love creating these opportunities for connection, for collaboration, for play, and for happiness. So thank you so much for joining me. Debbie, you are phenomenal. Thank you for giving me an hour of your precious time on this weekend. I hope that you have a blessed rest of your day. Lots of happiness and coziness finding you. Stay warm, stay healthy, and share any questions. I'll circle back. I'll answer those. I'm happy to be here for you. I am on a mission to help us all recognize we are connected. We are more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And when we do, then we can start to really dig into the work that we are here to do to lift up this world that we're in. So thank you for doing your part. Thanks for joining me, and I wish you well. Sending you great big love. Take good care of yourselves.